What's up, internet? Welcome, and today I'm going to show you what I do to prep my bike before each and every ride, and I'm going to also show you a couple little setup tips I've picked up over the years from various pros, none of which are me. All right, let's get into it. First thing I like to do is check the chain. Take 3 fingers right up against the end of the chain slider, and it should be fairly snug. Roll the wheel, check in a couple different spots. Chains are generally never perfectly even all the way around, and just go off the tightest spot that you can find. And again, should be nice and snug, but always check your service manual. Make sure that make sure you're within spec according to your service manual. But what I have found, at least with the YZ250, is that 3 of my fingers is just about right up against the chain slider. Like I said before, it should be snug. Shouldn't be too tight. A little bit of tiny play is okay, but you know, just try it. Next thing I like to do is check, that's the wrong size, not 13 millimeter, 12 millimeter. On the 250 2-stroke, I rarely ever find loose sprocket bolts, but on the 450 4-strokes, they have so much torque. Torque is your twisting power. It's what moves the motorcycle, that these sprocket bolts will eventually come loose fairly quickly compared to something like a 250 2-stroke. Once they start coming loose, throw them away. Get new ones. Don't play around with them. Once they start coming loose, they will only come loose quicker and quicker and quicker. I tried to be cheap. I tried to save my sprocket bolts. I just retighten them, torque them, put red Loctite. It didn't matter. Red Loctite is what I was trying to say. It didn't matter. They would just come loose faster and faster and faster after every tighten. So eventually I got to the point, like once one of them started coming loose, I'd get new sprocket bolts, replace them all, throw them away, never reuse them. And well, that's me. Next thing I like to do is check my spokes. This is a pretty cool spoke tool. I don't know if it comes out on the camera, but it's got multiple sizes on both sides. Pretty neat. It's handy. I usually will either start at the valve stem or start at the rim lock and then work my way around, and that's how I know I went all the way around the wheel when I get back to my starting point, either the valve stem or the rim lock. I'm going to start with the rim lock. I have to be honest, and as I'm about to say what I'm about to say, the very first spoke I go to was a little bit loose. Once a wheel is really broken in, and that might sound kind of funny, like you have to break in wheels. Once a wheel is broken in, I rarely find loose spokes. Yeah, I'm spitting on myself. When a wheel is brand new, I've had wheels built for bikes before, and literally you go out and do a 15-20 minute session at the track and all your spokes are loose. When a wheel is brand new, spokes come loose very quickly. And so with wow, man, I got a lot of loose spokes. That's really surprising. That's rare for me. I'll check my spokes and I won't even turn one most of the time. Where was I? Yeah, if you're riding with a brand new bike, it has brand new wheels on it, or you just got brand new wheels, whether you rebuilt them, whatever, you had somebody else built them, they came complete, whatever the case is. Next time you go out and ride, every session, check your spokes until you get to a point where they're not coming loose all the time. Once that wheel is like, you know, it's had a few rides on it. We'll just say that. A few rides in, should be good. And there we go, we're done. One of the last things I will do in the area of the rear wheel is check the rim lock. Motocross bikes, they do have tubeless setups now, but traditionally these are tubed tires, and we run very low tire pressures. I'll give you some examples. I will run as low as 12 pounds of tire pressure. That's usually later in the day when the track's dried out and it's a little bit more hard packed and dusty and dry. I will lower the pressure all the way down to 12 psi. I generally won't go lower than that. I've felt the wheel kind of fold over the rim when I start getting in that 10, 11 psi area. 12 is kind of like the bottom. In the morning, when the track is watered and cut and tilled and dug out nice and deep, I will run more tire pressure, maybe 13, 14 pounds. I think the most I've ever ran is like 15 pounds, and that's usually like in deep sand kind of a setup. So check your rim lock. That keeps the wheel from spinning inside the tire. I also like to check the axle nut. Little hot tip for you. Some bikes, like the Yamaha, have a self-locking, self-tightening nut on the end. And Kawasaki doesn't like to use those. I don't know why. Even on the street bike, even on the Ninja, Kawasaki prefers to use cotter keys. I hate cotter keys because, especially, not so much on the street bike, but especially on the motocross bikes, you have to adjust your chain more often. You remember, these bikes are like race bikes, man. I go out there to the track and I just beat the shit out of this thing. And so the chains get stretched quicker. They just, the bike just needs more care and maintenance. A lot of times when I'm riding my street bike, I'm not riding like a raging lunatic. Sometimes. But I'm always riding like a raging lunatic, at least as far as my ability will let me go. So with that, you do have to take this off quite a bit more than you might on a street bike. So cotter keys are a pain in the butt. So what I do is Kawasaki and Suzuki both ran, at least for some time, I don't know if this is still true, but they both ran the same size axle and axle nut. And so I would go and get the Suzuki, because Suzuki didn't use the cotter keys. They had the self-tightening one. And so I'd go get the Suzuki nut, slap it on my Kawasaki. That was back in the day when I ran a KX450. Just a hot tip for you. If you have a Cowie and you're tired of cotter keys, go get the Suzuki nut. I do like to talk a bit of trash about 4-strokes and 450s, but 252 strokes vibrate more than 454 strokes. At least that's been my experience. And I think motocross bikes in general vibrate a lot. You think about all the movement around the track, braking bumps, jumps, just everything that they're going through. So I will walk most of the nuts and bolts. I'll just walk around the bike and hit them with the T-handles and just make sure everything is nice and tight and not have anything coming loose. One thing that's nice about the YZ250 is almost all the bolts that I tend to check are either 8 mil or 10 mil. So I just need 2 T-handles and I'll just walk all the way around the bike, check all the nuts and bolts. Dun, dun, dun. I like T-handles. The other thing I like to do is check my transmission fluid level. On a 2-stroke, obviously you don't have engine oil, it's just transmission fluid. Yamaha likes to use a check level bolt. You just want to make sure a couple of drops come out. That was actually a little high. Just want to make sure she drips a little bit. Kawasaki has a sight window. Honda has both a sight window, I believe, and a level bolt. I'm not sure what you call these, and that's because Honda actually separates the transmission fluid and the engine oil, whereas all the other manufacturers combine or use the same pot of oil for both crank and engine and transmission. I think I said that right. Probably not. You get the idea. When all else fails, check your service manual. But I like to check my transmission fluid. A couple drops came out, a little bit more, a couple drops. We're good. Another thing I like to do before I go to the track is check my coolant level. All right, I'm gonna share a true story with you. And it's another opportunity for me to pick on 4-strokes. But 4-strokes run hotter. They just do. If you let them sit and idle, especially during a hot summer day, they will boil over and start spewing out coolant from their overflow line, which is underneath the bike here. And so one day, bear with me for a second, technical difficulties. So one day, there's a guy out at the track practicing starts, and at this particular track, it has a concrete pad for the starting gate, and he's got his bike idling, leaning up against the doghouse. If you don't know what the doghouse is, it's that box in the middle somebody stands in, and it's all boxed off so that the riders on the gate can't see the guy in the doghouse, because his job, or her job, could be a her, is to drop the gate. And if the riders can see them in their peripheral, they'll use that person to key off when to take off, because once they see that person moving, they know the gate's going to drop soon, and you know, they'll try and time it and all that kind of stuff. So they build a box. It's called the doghouse, I think. Some person stands in there, they drop the gate. Anyway, this dude's practicing starts. The gate was down. A lot of times they leave the gate up so people can't practice starts off the starting gate. But this particular day, the gate was down and somebody was taking the opportunity of it, and he had his engine idling and the bike leaned up against the doghouse, and he's sweeping the concrete. That's one thing about concrete starts, is you always want to sweep it off to get all the loose dirt off the top so that you don't get wheel spin, so that you actually get some traction and launch forward. Versus a dirt start, you don't care, it's dirt. And so I roll up in there, and I was going to practice some starts too because the gate was down, and his bike's just spewing out coolant, just spewing it out. I was like, dude, a big old puddle of coolant underneath his bike. So you don't know that's happening, especially if you're riding and it overheats, because it's all coming out of the bottom. You have no idea. There's no water temp gauges on motocross bikes, nothing. You have no idea that you might have lost some coolant last time you were out. So pop the radiator cap off and just check and make sure you've got fluid at the top there. That's it. That's my tip. Another thing I like to do is pull the seat, visually inspect the air filter. I will typically ride 2 times on one filter. 2 times being, I go to the track, I do 2 or 3 sessions out on the track, I come back home, repeat the next weekend. The 3rd weekend, I will typically pull the filter and put a clean one in. Something I recommend if you ride frequently to me, once or twice a week, get a bunch of filters, get like 4 or 5. Clean them, oil them all at the same time. That way, when it's time to grab a new filter, if you're riding once or twice a week, that's potentially once a week, you just grab a new clean one, swap it out, put the old dirty one in wherever you keep your dirty filters. Once you run out of clean filters, just clean them all at the same time, and then you're good to go for another month. All right, so the last thing I'm gonna leave you guys with is a setup tip, and that tip is, notice how much of a gap I have between the brake mount on the handlebar and my throttle tube. And the reason why I do that, and I actually learned this from a dude named Ryan Hughes. He did a clinic here in Denver, Colorado, and part of that clinic was some setup tips. The reason why I have so much spacing and why I run the mount so far away from my throttle tube is so that when I go to grab my brakes, I'm grabbing the very end of the lever, which gives me the most amount of leverage. And that's important because I think brakes is something that I see at the track that is extremely underutilized. I make up so much time on the brakes sometimes when I'm riding really good. It's mind-boggling how much people don't use their brake. I am hitting the motocross again. I'm hitting the motocross track again tomorrow. That'll be 2 weeks in a row. I'm setting records, man. I haven't rode 2 weeks in a row in a long time. But man, am I looking forward to it. Anyway, I just thought I'd share my routine. This is what I go through every time I get ready to go to the track. There's probably something I'm not thinking about because right now I'm focused on the video. But leave a comment down below if you like this kind of content, you like the tips, or if you have any questions, or maybe there's something that you do that I didn't do in this video, and you should be like, hey man, you should also check this out, and check this, and tighten that, and blah, 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 blah. Thanks for watching. That was a long I had lots of things to think about. But thanks for watching. Keep the rubber side down. If you would like to support the channel, check out my Patreon. For $1 a month, you can kind of help keep this thing going and get early access to videos. Check out MonkeyButtRides.com. We got merch there. That's all I got. All right, guys, keep your rubber side down. We'll see you in the next video, and be on the lookout for more Motocross.